So it's a no-brainer. This is money coming back into the pockets, into local coffers for local municipalities, for families in general, for county government, and for the state in the form of taxes. And so what I will say is there will be an army of people coming out in the next election if this bill is not extended. And there will be an army of individuals running for office against individuals that are not in support of this idea. I've already heard it.
Welcome in to the happiest place on earth. Not Disney World, but it is Alabama Politics This Week with your host, Josh Moon, and
David Person.
How are you, David? I hope you're better than our producer.
Man, I'm good. It's a good day. It's a good day today.
Yeah,
good day.
Bad. Not too shabby at all. We need to tell you, too, that this is Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Our friends over at Wind Creek are some of the best sponsors that you could hope for, and because they ask of nothing, really, they just say, hey, keep doing the show, and so we're going to keep sending folks their way if at all possible. I know you're heading down to Auburn in the coming weeks, and this week or sometime coming up, and to see some ball games. And I say Auburn because I guess maybe if you're coming from South Alabama or maybe from Florida. You could stop at Atmore or Wetumpka, Montgomery, and stay overnight and break up that trip to go to Tuscaloosa. But most folks are going through Montgomery and heading over to the ball game at Auburn, and I think it's a pretty convenient place to stay in Wetumpka at the resort they have there, the resort casino. Go in and play some games, and sit at the bar and have some drinks, watch some of the ball games. I'm telling you, it'll be a nice time. And while you're there, you can enjoy the spa, you can enjoy the nice restaurants. The kids have some things to do in there with the different amenities that they have for them. You will not regret it. They are good folks. They are good neighbors. They're the largest hospitality employer in Alabama. They are Ultra Diamond Star rated in all their facilities and everything that they have going on at all three locations, Montgomery, Wetumpka, and Atmore. So go. Look them up online at Wind Creek Entertainment and book a stay with them. Or listen, if you'd like to get away, they've got some. Do you know they have a private island in Aruba?
Whoa, no, really?
Yes, they do indeed. They do indeed. They've got they've got some other places, Pennsylvania, and some other locations around the country as well. Just look them up, see what all they do, see where you'd like to go. I'm telling you, you won't regret the opportunity to stay with them. So, nice. All right, listen, and we really appreciate what they do for us, and which is, they help us put this baby on, and it's nice. It's very, very nice to have that kind of sponsorship where they ask you for nothing, to just mention us during the show and keep doing what you're doing. It's very nice. All right, we had a couple of options on how to start, because honestly, it's been a pretty slow few weeks in Alabama politics. National politics are hot and and things are up and going, but it's been a pretty quiet time around these parts. But one person who has not been quiet, who continues to weigh in on everything political, is the very popular, I guess if you're an Auburn fan, the very popular basketball coach at Auburn, Bruce Pearl. And Pearl Pearl's a right winger. He's a conservative guy. I think a lot of that stems from being Jewish, and believing that he is better served as a Jewish person under the policies of Republicans. I think he takes a strong, hard line, the Netanyahu kind of hard line on things. I think that's the way he believes. That's what he believes. That's what the man believes. Okay. I've heard him talk about it. I certainly do not agree with him on what he says. And I'm not saying this because he's an Auburn coach, because believe me, I've criticized many. Ask Gene Chizik. But it's, this last week, he started out. He had some tweets about Kamala Harris and being woke and liberal, and her policies, and flip flopping, and talking about how they're not going to be fooled again by Kamala Harris. And I posted a little something on Facebook because that's what you do. And it was and I said basically this. I don't care about Bruce Pearl's politics. He's a one in a million people that believe differently than I believe. I don't care about that. I run into people, decent, good people who I like all the time, who believe differently than I believe on political nature, and so that's fine. But what I don't understand is in this climate that we are in now, there is no way that what he's saying will not be used by universities and coaches who are recruiting against him out on the recruiting trail. Because Auburn is, listen, what Bruce Pearl has done for Auburn basketball is remarkable. I never thought it would rise to the heights that it has. He has done a phenomenal job at Auburn in turning that basketball program into one of the top in the nation. That venue is one of the toughest to play in all the country. It's ranked right up there with Cameron Indoor at Duke. And so, it has been a remarkable turnaround for what he's done. And so he is recruiting at that level. He is recruiting the McDonald's All-Americans. He is recruiting those guys that are at the top of everybody's list. And once you get to that level, everything for the most part is pretty equal. Everybody's going to have the NIL money, a large amount of it. Everybody's going to have the shoe deals. Everybody's going to have, nice accommodations and good places for the kids to stay, and opportunities for them to get into business and other things. They're gonna have all of these things. The trainers, the top line equipment, all of this stuff is going to be there for everybody. Yeah. And so then it just comes down to a handful of factors, a feel of relationships, of how you get along, of what's going on that campus, how do they feel at home in a small town like campus at Auburn? A lot of kids do. A lot of kids love it. I loved it. Loved the place. Mm-hmm. But so now you're saying these things about potentially the first female black president. Mm. And you're taking a pretty hard line about her. And if you don't think that these other coaches, first of all, if you don't think that these other coaches are using that, then those other coaches need to be fired if they're not using it, honestly. Right. I don't, so they're going to use it. And you have to know that it's going to have some weighing impact on some of these kids that they're recruiting. Because let's be honest, the majority of the kids that they're going to recruit are going to be black kids. Mm-hmm. All right. And black kids and families that look up to potentially the first female black president.
Right. And also, Josh, young people today seem to be more socially conscious than maybe in recent history. And especially, I'll say, you're going to find more athletes, student athletes are going to be socially conscious, because a lot of the athletes that these kids are going to looking up to are socially conscious. Mm-hmm. They've seen Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade and LeBron James and Chris Paul stand up at the ESPYs and take political stands. They've seen Colin Kaepernick take the knee. They've seen the NBA players come out on the court and, in Black Lives Matters T-shirts. So they I believe, they're acclimated a little bit more to be socially aware. Not to mention however they were raised in their homes and whatever they were exposed to in school. So I think you're 100% right. It doesn't make sense for Bruce Pearl to be rabidly, vocally right-wing. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion. This is America. He can think whatever he wants and believe whatever he wants, no matter how stupid or crappy his opinions are.
Right.
But having said that, it's not in his best interest or in the basketball team's best interest for him to be in a position where he potentially alienates people. And I don't even know, Josh, I don't even know if it's so much the opinion as much as the tone. Mm-hmm. You know, if he just said, you know, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, I don't agree with the vice president, but God bless her. She's not going to get my vote, but, you know, God bless her and God bless America. I think people would be fine with that.
Yeah, I do too. And you know, well, let me tell you, I'll tell you this too. I think it requires some, you know, some smarts in determining, picking and choosing, you know, which sort of battles you enter in this case. And, you know, this one has been, if you're a coach who is recruiting a majority, you know, black players, you know, recognizing that this particular race is one in which her opponent has said, you know, well, you know, is she black? I don't know if she's black. You know, she's always you know, and has made race a big part of this, and has really turned a lot of black families off with his comments, you know, especially about black jobs and other things. Right. And so, you know, I think that also plays a role in this. And you're right, he can hold what and that's what I said in the post. I don't care about his politics. I really don't. It's my point was, it at a point. Let's say this goes out, and one recruit says, "Yeah, I don't. I'm going to go to North Carolina. I'm going to go to Duke. I don't. You know, I think they're. You know, I'm going to go to Alabama with Nate Oates or you know wherever." Well, that's, you know, listen. One guy in basketball can make a huge difference, but still. Even if it's going to wind up being a bench guy, what did you gain from this? We know what you lost. What did you gain from doing it? And I think that's something that the universities needs to take a look at and say, hey man, you know, look, we're okay with you holding whatever opinion you want to hold. We're okay with your trips to Israel. We're okay with talking to the team about, you know, whatever. But at the same time, you know, let's be a little more careful in the way these things are voiced, because this is becoming detrimental to the program. You know, I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, it's ego gratification. I mean, that's all I can attribute it to. It's ego gratification. There's no need for him to express his point of view in the way he is. No, but I don't even know if anybody's asking him to do that.
No.
You know, so, I mean, it could be that somebody is and we don't know it, but as far as I know, I've not heard that anybody's out there asking him to be a surrogate for Donald Trump or for the Republican Party. So, again, the question is, why is he doing it? My only answer is ego gratification, which is why a lot of us post on social media because we feel we've got something to say. Right. And, you know, I don't care if it's me, you, whoever, a lot of that is ego gratification. Okay, fine. The business you and I are in, it makes sense because it's part of our brand and it builds our brand. It helps to extend our brand. The business he's in, I think it's risky and probably stupid, but
you know. I don't do it for the ego. I just do it for the money. And so, you know, I like that influencer check every month. But you know, I understand what you're saying, and that's kind of what I said. I said it doesn't benefit anybody. The only person that could possibly benefit is a post-basketball Bruce Pearl. You know, where he goes out and lands a job as a commentator on Fox, or, you know, as maybe running for office somewhere, you know, and maybe he's seen the Tuberville path and he likes that option. You know, he likes being able to go up there and make those stock trades. And so, you know, it can, you know, really set the family up for life. And you know,
and have a house in Florida too.
Right, exactly. And and that's fine for Bruce Pearl, but so I'm not even really knocking Bruce Pearl here, although I think what he is doing is reckless in terms of the job that he holds. I'm really kind of saying to the people at Auburn, hey man, you know, this isn't really benefiting y'all. Matter of fact, it could be hurting you in some ways. Why don't you make this guy stop doing that? While, you know, or at least don't pull it back a little bit. And so it's not, and I don't know if those are, what kind of tweets those are. I mean, they seem, some of them are just off the wall, man. But it just, and which all right-wing tweets are, I guess, but still, but I said something else in there too. And I wanted to bring this up as well. And I know you talked about it earlier, and that's, I really kind of hate that we know everybody's political stance and opinion on everything now. I think back to when I was a kid, and I didn't know what Del Murphy thought. You know what I mean? I didn't know, what the $6 million man's opinion was on the political, on the presidential race. I didn't know what Linda Carter's stance was on abortion when she was Wonder Woman. It just didn't. This wasn't a thing. I honest to God, I loved Kirk Cameron on on Growing Pains and the whole Growing Pains show, and then I hated to find out that he was crazy, and it just so you know what I mean. It just has. I just wish that wall was still there. That the fourth wall or whatever, between the audience and the people doing the acting, and I just don't want it.
But to be clear, you're not making a shut up and dribble argument, are you?
No, I'm not making a shut up and dribble argument. What I'm making an argument against, I think, is social media in general. I just, honest to God, I hate it. I really have grown to loathe it in so many ways. I hate what it has done to people. I hate the way it has altered communications among people. I hate the way it has led to so much misinformation. I hate the way it has allowed idiots to congregate and believe that they are in a majority somewhere. I hate the way that it has made politics front and center of everything. I just, and I hate the way that it has affected our children. And I mean, I will do everything in my power to keep my daughter from being on social media until she's out of the house. I mean, I know it'll be a fight, and I don't want to be. I'll explain it as best as I can, to her, and try to make her understand. But I think there are so many negative effects of it. You see it with the anxiety and the depression in kids. You see it with the anxiety and depression in adults that spend a lot of time on there. And I think, and I'll say this, I think the bill that Katie Britt has co-sponsored that attempts to limit children's access to social media, I think is a godsend of a bill. I think that it is something that should have been done a long time ago. We know that they have targeted kids. We know that the algorithms have been specific to these kids. We know what the effects have been of it. We know of the bullying. We know of all of these consequences of these webs. I mean, we're talking about websites, for God's sakes. Yeah. We managed to grow up in our lives without them. And I understand they're a big part of the world today, and they can be good, but my God, they're not. They're not good.
Well, I mean, a lot of damage has been done, no doubt. And that's not really a shocker because unfortunately human nature, is in a tug of war in two directions between good and evil. And I'm not talking religion here, I'm talking reality. We know that there are people out there that are hell-bent on exploiting other people, so that they can enrich themselves. That's evil. That's evil. You don't need a Bible or a Quran or a Torah to tell you that. That's evil. So, there's a tug of war between good and evil, and some people opt for the evil, because they're narcissistic or whatever it is that fuels that. So I hear what you're saying on the one hand. And yet on the other, I'd say, social media has also allowed for some good to happen. And I guess that's why we need something that, mitigates the bad, and what Katie Britt is trying to do certainly would help in that way. I'm not opposed to that as a general idea. But I will say when it comes to back to your original point, um, it was a good time when we could just watch a basketball game or a movie without having to worry about somebody's politics. But as a child of the civil rights movement, and I think I can say I am because of when I was born. I was born in 1963, so I was heavily influenced by the civil rights movement. It also mattered that people like Tony Bennett, the late great jazz singer, and Charlton Heston, and Sammy Davis Jr. and Harry Belafonte, and scores of other Hollywood stars put their Hollywood reputations on the line, in order to support civil rights. It mattered that Paul Robeson, the great singer, from the early 19th century, well, say early 19th, mid 19th century, I'm sorry, mid 20th century, sacrificed his career to take a stand for civil rights even before the civil rights movement really began to take off in earnest. And he was kind of out there almost by himself in some ways, at least as an artist. There's a time and place to take a stand, and I'm not going to deprive Bruce Pearl of that or anybody else. But again, I think the big issue with Pearl is not what he's saying, but how he's saying it. And that's probably, like I said, I think a lot of people, and we know black households are predominantly households that vote Democratic, even though we're not monolithic. We definitely lean in that direction. It would be a lot easier for him to be accepted, by the majority of black people and the people that he's recruiting, as well as his fan base, if he just changed his tone.
Or just didn't say anything.
Or didn't say anything. Yeah.
And I'm with you. I'm not trying to silence Bruce Pearl,
right,
or censor Bruce Pearl or whatever.
Right.
I just think that what he's doing is detrimental to the program. And
Right.
I understand exactly what you're saying about, about the people that led the civil rights movement and aided the civil rights movement. And, and there have been so many others that have spoken out over the years. Muhammad Ali came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
What he did, and and there's been so many others, that have taken a stand. Colin Kaepernick, and a bunch of the folks that have stood up for injustice and stuff, and or against injustice, and I can appreciate the effect those folks have, and I do appreciate what they've done, and not just because I agree with that. I think that. To me though, sometimes that's not politics to me. That's life. And life is different. I mean that. What Kaepernick and them were talking about. That wasn't a political statement to me. That was a hey, I'm not being represented in this country, or I'm not enjoying the same freedoms and rights in this country because. I'm a black man, and black people are being mistreated by the police in this country. I mean, to me, that's not political. That's a life situation. That's something that affects those guys every day, and so many Americans every day. And it's the same way with civil rights. I understand that politics ultimately help to aid the situation, but it wasn't a political stance that they took, in my opinion. It was a human rights stance that they took. And so, I mean, but I know that's really slicing up the hairs there. So, but I just wish that there was no social media. I think it's the biggest thing. If you had to go out and get attention for your views, and not to mention social media has killed actual news now. It's just murdered the actual news. And in a lot of ways the news sites did it to themselves by agreeing to these to participate, and then they pulled the plug on them, and that was a wrap. And so, I mean, it just they've murdered that now and made themselves the information source, and so much of that information is wrong, and it's a shame where we are. And I don't think if tomorrow we woke up and Twitter/X, Facebook, and Instagram, and whatever other ones are out there were all gone, we wouldn't miss a beat. We would not miss a beat in any negative way, and I think the rest of the world would get along just fine, and we would probably have a lot happier kids and a lot calmer political climate, and people wouldn't hate each other quite as much, and some families would get back together. So I've just come to absolutely loathe most of it, even though I'm on it and post on it on Facebook, quite a bit. But again, it's only for them.
Wait, are you really getting influencer checks?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I mean, we don't need to talk about it, but yeah.
Well, no, you and I need to talk about it. I need to get in on that gig. How do you get that gig? I don't have that gig.
We can talk about it.
All right.
Let's slide out of here. We're going to come back. We're going to get Anthony Daniels on, House Minority Leader Anthony Daniels, and he's going to talk about his overtime tax bill, which Republicans are going to try to kill, I think, in the upcoming legislative session, and not allow it to continue forward, because why not screw the working people? And also the Huntsville city elections, which he lives up here. He has had a keen interest in and was watching closely. So we'll talk about some of those things as well. We will be back in a moment on Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy now to have with us our a guy who's been on several times. And we always insult him, but he keeps coming back. But we like him. That's what you do with your friends. You insult them, and and y'all all get along. But it's House Minority Leader Anthony Daniels. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Just enjoying the beautiful weather outside. Can't wait for the rain to get here, so some of my it can get some of my plants back going, because they look like they're dying.
Look at you over there, just got a little green thumb going. I hear you out there doing some gardening, and I know it's I love this weather. I'm in the minority, I think, because I love it to be 100 degrees and 100% humidity outside. That's when I start running.
Oh wow! I couldn't. Yeah, I can't afford that type of tan.
Well, just lather on some sunscreen, you'll be all right. It's nice weather outside, and I know you were. Let's start with the city elections last night, I guess, because I know that you pay attention, and you've got some candidates that you prefer in those races, and you keeping a finger on the pulse of what's going on over in Huntsville, where you live. So rightfully so. What did you think about the outcome? Just John Meredith winning easily, I think, pretty easily in that race, and then also the other race where Devin Keith does not look like he's going to be able to hold on.
Well, I was very, the polling data that I saw several weeks ago didn't hold up in either race. The polling data that I saw a few weeks ago had Lewis up by 4 points about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and so the other polling data that I saw had Michelle Watkins up by 52%, and so that was within the margin of error. It's typically about 4 points. It's within the margin of error. She finished with 49.51% last night. Not sure whether or not there are any other ballots that were provisional ballots cast. I'm not sure kind of the outcome of that, or if there's enough to make a difference. But I would tell you, all in all, for the most part, the candidates have run a fairly clean campaign, which is always good because you want to get into more substance on the issues that's going to continue to have our community grow, but smart growth, making certain that we are, while we love to have more people coming into our community, I think that our growth has to be smart because right now I can tell you, uh, riding on 565 at a certain time makes me feel like I'm back in D.C. or even taking a trip to Atlanta. And so it's very difficult to get out of. So it appears that our infrastructure, um, has we have some work to do there. And I know that that's part of a state issue because of 565, but there are other contributing factors that I think we have to advocate for at the state level to help manage some of the growth and manage some of the congestion that's going on.
Well, let me tell you, you want some congestion? Try. I know 565 is bad, but try 72 in Madison around 5 o'clock every day, or basically any time of the day. There's a stretch through there. You just be better off walking. So but that's right. Yeah. I think it's always interesting in these races, the nonpartisan city elections, because there's no Republican, no Democrat, but there are Republicans, Democrats. You kind of know where everybody stands. I think Tommy Battle made his position fairly well known, a few years ago when he ran for governor on the Republican side of things, and backed Roy Moore and has done some other things. So in this one, just looking at it. If Watkins goes ahead and wins, this looks like kind of a shift of the city council in which there is pretty clearly a progressive majority on that council. Would you say?
Well, I think for the most part, with the city council is a little bit different. You have to be able to count to three to get anything done if you're governing as a mayor of a community. And so I think that um, we'll still continue to grow, but I think that there'll be more attention paid to, we'll watch the development in various districts.
Right.
And so how that happens. But I suspect that the council will be very cordial, unlike other places I've seen. I think for the most part, the council will continue to be very cordial and work together on issues and prioritize the community and move forward. But I think that there may be different visions on how we get there, and more aggressively in certain areas that have certainly in several years have not been necessarily afforded the same amenities as other areas, and for various reasons. And I don't know what those reasons are because I'm not on the council, but I will tell you that there's just conversation within the community.
Well, that is a very politically correct answer that
Yes.
you just provided. Nicely done.
Very adroit. Very adroit.
Yeah,
That's why he's the House Minority Leader.
That's right, yeah.
He knows how to articulate that. So, by my count, Anthony, assuming that Michelle wins the runoff, you got Michelle Watkins representing District 1, David Little, District 2, Bill Kling, District 3, Jeannie Robinson, District 4, and John Meredith, District 5. That's the 3-2 breakdown that Josh was talking about. He was talking about Watkins, Kling, and Meredith being an alliance. And so he's describing that as more progressive, and I would say that's probably true relative to, but I think it was going to end up being that either way. Even if McKenzie had gotten on there, even if Devin Keith had retained it, either way, you were going to have that breakdown. And I would argue that if Lewis had beaten Meredith, again, you would still have that same basic alignment. So it was going to swing that way anyway, Josh. I think the question is, who would the establishment prefer? who would they think they could more easily work with or influence. And Michelle Watkins, and Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, or you may again give us a politically correct, adroit answer.
But, by all means, please talk around it as much as you can.
But Michelle is not perceived to be someone with whom the current administration, the current mayor, can work with as easily, perhaps, as he could Reggie McKenzie or even Devin Keith. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I disagree because just like we've seen with Vice President Harris, the perception for Vice President Harris is that she could never be president prior to Biden stepping aside. And we saw the momentum shift very quickly once she became the nominee. Sometimes it takes us having a conversation with people to really get to know them. And in all fairness, I don't have a perception of people without getting to know them. I mean, I just don't do that. And so I think that we're all adults, we're all professionals, and so if that's the advantage you want to use to say this is why I prefer this candidate versus that candidate, instead of learning how to understand what you can understand about all of the candidates so that you can work together. For me, I think it's counterproductive to just count to three. I think that because any given day you can be the opposite, 2-3 instead of 3-2. And so it's best to broaden your relationships than to force your relationships to be confined to just that majority or falling short. And so a part of governing is like, even in the legislature, Governor Ivey, the Republicans have the numbers to do whatever they want to do, right? But the governor chose to work with myself and Senator Singleton in our caucuses on priority issues that impact the state of Alabama. And so, and then she could have easily chosen that, because I'm a Democrat, I don't want to work with him. But she didn't. That's a part of real leadership. And I think that has to be the sentiment of whoever is in a position that they're governing, is giving every person an opportunity and getting to know them instead of a perception. And I don't like that. And that's why, and I've said that locally to people that's close to other people, and said to them that you give everybody a chance, meet with them, talk to them, get to know them before you start having this perception about them or trying to paint them in a certain way because it's unfair to them.
Yeah. You just, again, I think this is why you're the House Majority Leader. That was a very Obama-esque aspirational answer. And that answer reflects exactly the position that the battle administration should take. But it's not the position that they did take, from what I have heard. From what I have heard, they put, and this is, admittedly, this is rumor, but it seems to me consistent with what we have seen in the past. From what I have heard, my friend Reggie McKenzie, and I say my friend because Reggie and I have been friends for years, was, let's say, encouraged to enter the race in order to try to draw votes away from Michelle Watkins. Also, we know, and this is public record, that Michelle Watkins and the mayor have had open disagreements, in fact, to such a degree that it became actually a legal matter, if I remember correctly, at one point in time.
Well, here's what I will say. Sometimes people have to grow up and figure out a way to because at the end of the day, if you saw the same number that I saw, you would be you would make certain that you want to keep the 3 or the 4 or even having 5 votes on things that are prioritized by the city.
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily go after a person based upon my previous relationship with them. My focus would be, where does our priorities align? Here's where I want to take the city. Here's where I think we can help your district or help the entire city grow in a smart way. And I want to work with you on these things. That's the approach that we've taken in Montgomery. And so my expectation will be, if Ms. Watkins is successful in winning, I would hope that the mayor would take that approach. Otherwise, I think that my view of him is wrong.
So I hearing your answers makes me think deep in my heart that I hope that you will be Huntsville's next mayor, if that's what you would like to do.
No.
He's heard it here.
Let me
heard
say
it here first.
Let me say
He's announcing
this.
he's running.
Let me tell you this, David. That's the approach I take in Montgomery.
I got you.
That is me giving advice to people that are in any position. It's certainly not something that that's not me saying I'm running for mayor, because I'm not. But I just think that for a community, I've seen other communities where the council and the mayors are at odds, and that's not good for those communities. You can pick a community, and I can tell you where that happens all over the state of Alabama and all over the country. Our community, we've not necessarily had that particular sentiment. We've not had the operation that way. And I hope that, my hope is that we don't have that moving forward. And I'm not going to judge a person based upon what their encounter has been with other people if that same encounter has not happened with me.
I got you.
I've not had a bad encounter with Deb and Keith either. Right? And so, but I just, we don't necessarily hang out or anything. But I'm not, so I think for me, at some point, people are going to have to become adults and realize that I'm going to have to work with whoever is on this council.
Right.
Because we want our city and our community to continue to grow. And you have to take an adult approach. And if you refuse to take an adult approach, there will be consequences.
Sure.
I don't understand why you wouldn't run. I mean, honestly, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Not just for,
I have a 6-year-old and I have an 8-year-old.
But you're going to be at home. You'd be there with them. You'd be there in
Let me say
town.
something. I helped Mayor Battle on his election in, I think it was 2008. Okay. And I see the mayor at more events 7 days a week than I've ever seen anyone running for anything. And so there's an expectation that you must implement the retail politics piece of it. And so you got to look at that. You may be home, but you're not home.
Yeah, I understand. I feel like
you may be in the city limits, but you're not. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying. I just feel like your brand of politics would fit well into what Huntsville is and is becoming, and that's all I'm saying. I think that you would fit very well in that position. That's just me. I'm just and I understand if you don't want to. I'm not going to try to force you to do it, but I can assure you
that we have a really good nucleus that's on our council and our mayor's office that's doing a great job for the city of Huntsville. And they're doing a great job and they're working together. I just hope that they continue to work together regardless of who the electors are.
Let me ask you one other question. And this is about the District 5, City Council District 5 race. So we had John Meredith and Kim Lewis in that race. I felt like it was not a shock that John Meredith won because, first of all, he's the incumbent. It's hard to unseat incumbents, just generally speaking. And then, two, I don't feel like Kim Lewis made a case for why John Lewis should be unseated. If you're going to unseat an incumbent, you got to give people a reason why. You got to give them a reason. You got to give them a logic for voting that person out. And as best I can tell, she didn't do that. What's your assessment of what happened?
My assessment is that I think that Ms. Lewis probably looked at the numbers from the state Senate seat and was probably given some encouragement by that. But there is a very difference. One of a consultant that helps out in this community taught me a long time ago. There's a very different there is a difference between running a partisan race and running a nonpartisan race. It's not the same. It's not one the same. Because when you run in a partisan race, you get your brand of politics you get boxed in to where it's hard. You're already only starting with the folks that are within your party, and you already have a large number of people against you that may not identify with you in the same party, although it's a nonpartisan race. And so you got to look at those things. And if you make the race a partisan race, if the numbers in your benefit, then you make the partisan race. I think that it is nearly impossible to unseat an incumbent that has not been engaged in a scandal. I just think it's almost impossible. And I think that sometimes our encouragement around us is encouraging us for their own benefit, not for your well-being. Sometimes you become an employment agency for various individuals instead of thinking logically about decisions that you need to make. And yes, I am taking a shot.
I saw that very clearly, and I think I know who you were shooting at.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
ouch.
what? And I have and I'm shooting because there have been conversations that have been taking place where this person has made comments relative to things that about me that's not true, and so I am taking a shot.
I see. Okay. Okay.
I always like it when they take shots. All right, just unless you got something else, David, I was going to switch gears.
No. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, after that, I need to get a sip of water and recover. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Because I wanted to ask about the overtime tax bill and where that stands right now. I know that the Republicans are clamoring to get that thing out of there, to let it sunset, to let it go away. And that, what I'm talking about is the bill that you created, you sponsored, you led through the legislature and was signed by the governor into law that basically repeals the tax on overtime pay. It was an immediate bump in pay for tens of thousands of workers all across the state, but to hear Republicans talk, it was just too much. It was just, it's just too much money coming out of that education trust fund budget. And in the meantime, these are the same guys that pulled $100 million out per year currently, and much, much more down the line for the Choose Act to give to wealthy families to send their kids to private school. So I just wonder where things are standing right now, and are they actually going to try to let this thing sunset?
Let me say this, Josh. People that claim to know about economics obviously don't understand it to its entirety. And I'll say that because if an individual were able to keep a portion of their money that their hard-earned dollars and working overtime, and their hourly workers, there's data out there that speaks to the spending habits of hourly workers. They're going to spend the money back in the economy. So you're basically getting the money back in the form of taxes, right? This is the only tax break that you actually get money back. And it's not a tax break, it's earning. It's your money. So the difference is providing a voucher for something that's not been that has not been tested to improve academic performance, versus paying individuals that work additional hours that then spend the money back into the economy, that increases the tax receipts for local, county, and state government because of their spending. So it's a no-brainer. This is money coming back into the pockets, into local coffers for local municipalities, for families in general, for county government, and for the state in the form of taxes. And so what I will say is there will be an army of people coming out in the next election if this bill is not extended. And there will be an army of individuals running for office against individuals that are not in support of this idea. I've already heard it.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So,
Good.
Hey, pick your poison.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
if you are taking 100 and something million, they say 180, $80 million in wages away from individuals that made it the prior year, what do you think going to happen?
Right. Yeah.
Try taking a couple $100 from someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Or increasing taxes 1 cent.
It's always amazing how we've got all this money to do these things for companies, for corporations, for private schools, for the wealthy folks around. But the minute you give a break to somebody that's working or that's poor, it's like the grocery tax. We can't possibly repeal all the grocery tax. Oh, we can't possibly repeal. But then we can just jerk $100 million out for the private schools. It's ridiculous. It's an absurd notion that you can't do it. We know you can do it, but you don't. These are where your priorities are. That's how you spend your money. That's your priority.
No, I agree. I think that sometimes people like to hear themselves talk, but I will tell you, if you will see something you've never seen before in Alabama.
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
Honestly,
I hope they try to repeal it. I hope they let it sunset. Is what I hope.
And I can assure you that those folks are going to be facing significant and stiff opposition.
Good. I hope so. I hope so.
Well,
listen. Thanks. Thank you for coming on and spending some time and breaking down the city elections and taking that nice shot that you did. We all appreciate that.
There are more to come based upon some of the conversations that folks have had with me. That this individual has made these false comments about me. You best believe there will be more shots.
Did you want to name the individual?
No, they'll end up calling me after they hear this podcast, and I'll end up telling them everything that they've said. And I've just been very cordial and nice about it. But whenever you make these type of comments without any proof, it really there will be I will deal with this and continue to deal with it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
We're calling the political crossfire here.
Right. I feel great.
Listen,
this is the greatest time I've had in a long time.
You know how I am, David.
Yeah.
The shots that I fire are kill shots. They're not. I don't go back and forth with anyone.
All right.
Great. All right. That is old Deadeye Anthony Daniels in, and so we're gonna slide out of here.
Kill shots in case.
I know.
It's meaning that I'm not going back and forth with anyone.
Right.
When I fire a shot, it's going to hurt. It's not going to be just a shot, because when you come for me and I don't send for you, it's going to be interesting.
All right. So that is Omar Daniels from The Wire, and so we're going to slide out. It's Alabama Politics this week. We'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics this week. Josh Moon, David Person. Thanks to our fantastic sponsors, Wind Creek Entertainment, the folks over at Southern Poverty Law Center. Thanks to Anthony Daniels coming on, spending some time with us. Before we wrap up with our right-wing nut, I was going to talk just a minute about, I wrote a column this week, and listen, I always like to talk about myself. Because why not? You get a podcast, you can endorse your own things that you do. But I wrote a column about the abortion issue, and I basically said there really is no abortion debate in this presidential race. especially for the folks in Alabama. There's none. You know what life is going to be like under Donald Trump. You know what it's going to be like. You know where you're going to be. You know what's going to happen. You know the dire circumstances you're going to be in, and you know beyond all shadow of a doubt that Republicans have zero plan for how to handle any of these things that they've done. They have zero plan for it. They have no idea about how to solve the issue of rape and incest in terms of these children who are being impregnated by their family members or by rape or whatever. I mean, we've literally got 12-year-old kids that are pregnant, and we're going to force them to have babies. Okay, that is something that is happening. Is it the majority of pregnancies or abortions? No, of course not. Of course it's not. But it's still happening every day, and I would say one of those is too many.
Yep.
And there's no exception for it for you to solve that.
Yep.
The other thing they have no plan for is IVF. They've put themselves into this ridiculous box on this because no one is willing to stand up and say, oh yeah, that whole life at conception thing was just a talking point we were using to bash Democrats over the head with, and now it's got us in this real conundrum, and we can't do anything about it. So, that's where they are. In the meantime, you have the Kamala Harris camp and Democrats who have said, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to codify abortion rights with federal law. We're going to make sure that there is a right there. We're going to return this back to the doctors and the patients. We're going to fix the IVF situation along the way and be done with this whole thing. We're going to go back to the way things were prior to this."
So, to me, Josh, this is where conservatives really screwed up with abortion. They tried to make something that actually is a complex issue. It's complex scientifically, it's complex medically, it's complex theologically, it's complex from a moral standpoint. And they tried to overly simplify it. They tried to, they became just, ridiculously reductionist in terms of how they try to present and analyze abortion. We know that and no matter what angle you take a look at the topic, there's not consensus among experts. Theologically speaking, there's not consensus. When it comes to the morality or immorality of it, even outside of theological circles, again, there are complexities there. You look at the things that can happen to a woman, to a female, to a person who's able to give birth, the various scenarios under which abortion might need to be considered as an option. It's complicated. You just talked about one of the more delicate situations where you have incest and children being impregnated. Who in God's name would want to force a 10-year-old to have a baby of a rapist? My God, that's insane. Who would want to force a woman who's been raped to have a baby? That's insane. That shouldn't even be a consideration. Yet there are people out there, we all know, who take the position that should be allowed, that they should be forced to do that. But it's insane. Most people don't take that position. So anyway, I think that's really where they messed up. And as you said, it creates a conundrum for our state and for the people in our state. And the reality is, as you pointed out in your column, this was really just supposed to be, for Republicans and conservatives, it really was just supposed to be a talking point that they used to divide and galvanize. And now it's become something that really is creating very real life problems for women and girls and their families.
Yeah, well, and it's the IVF thing in particular is, I mean, it's
Yeah,
just this highlights to me the stupidity of the whole
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and highlights exactly what, when I say stupidity, I'm talking about exactly what you were just talking about right there,
Hmm.
which is trying to simplify this thing down into a black and white bumper sticker issue.
Yeah,
And somebody one time back in the 70s or 80s said something about it. It begins at conception, and oh, hey, look at there, we'll go with that. It's
hmm,
not. It's not based on anything. It's not based on anything. It's not based on law. It's not based on religion. It's not based on science. It's not based on anything at all. It's just something somebody said one time. I mean, find me in some religious scripture somewhere something about conception, and life beginning at conception. I mean, as far as I know, the only real reference to life beginning in the Bible is something about taking the first breath. And I mean, there's some other stuff about I knew you when before you were formed and all this kind of thing. But
yeah.
I mean, that ain't that's not the same as what we're talking about. And so,
Yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah, it's a dubious. You're right. It's a dubious argument. I mean, I think you can, and people have taken some scriptures, including the one you just alluded to, where it says, that God knows us before we are even born, and so forth. And they
Mhm.
take that and they adapt it in that way. But the truth of the matter is, um, and we know this by looking at history. There was a point in time in American Christianity where that was not the position, that was not the
Right,
interpretation
that's right.
of that. And if you go to, my understanding is, if you talk to some Jewish rabbis and scholars, that's still not the position,
Yeah,
that they take. So,
yeah.
again, it's a complicated issue.
And here's here's what I think the solution is, and I'll say that we just fell into this trap as well. We should not be talking about it from a religious perspective at all.
I agree.
That is something that should never enter into the conversation. Is what our beliefs are, what this group of people believe, what they, how those beliefs play into this. That it should not enter into the conversation at all. What should
Hmm.
be the conversation, to me, this is my opinion, this is my
Hmm.
stance on abortion. Okay,
Hmm.
is there should be a group of doctors and scientists that can tell us when that fetus becomes human within the womb. I believe that there is a point in there where that occurs somewhere.
Hmm.
Okay. I believe that there is a point in there where you can no longer say that that is just a collection of cells that has not yet become a person. I believe that you can talk. I mean, I've seen the photos. I know how it was when my daughter was, well, was being carried. And I know that, I know
Right.
where that is. And so I believe that there is a point in there where that little person can survive outside the womb if needed to be, and I think that that is a person at that point that
Right.
then should be protected in some form or fashion by the laws of our country. Okay,
Sure. I agree
I
with that.
believe
Yeah.
that's what I believe. I mean,
I,
I'm not asking anybody else
yeah.
to believe what I believe. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that's what I believe,
Well,
and and I think that at that point, that's where we should start making our laws in terms of what you can and cannot do if you are a woman carrying that. And I believe that those laws should be then in conjunction with the woman and the doctors and what the doctors recommend and the
absolutely.
viability of the pregnancy and the health of the woman. And that's where I think everything should begin, and we should move forward with that. That's my stance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% common sense. That's what you just articulated. I agree with you 10,000%.
Mhm.
Now, let's also bring into the conversation this insane idea, and it's insane not only from a common sense standpoint, but from a legal standpoint, that people should be prosecuted for doing something in another state because it's illegal in this state. That's
Mhm.
absolutely
Right.
outrageous. And we don't apply that legal standard to anything else. If I were to go right now today to Colorado and smoke some weed
Hmm.
where it's legal,
Hmm.
there's no way that anybody would say that I should be able to be prosecuted when I got back to Alabama
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was smoking weed in Colorado.
Well, we better
Well, if
stop
I were
those
to-
buses headed down to Biloxi to the casino. So I'll tell you that.
Yeah, or the buses that that's right. Gambling in the casino or playing the lottery in some other state or going to a brothel in Nevada, whatever you want to look at as a so-called vice that is legal someplace else. Nobody would say, "Oh, you should be prosecuted because when you go back to Alabama." Why? Under what law? What legal principle would that be even remotely seen as constitutional or justifiable? None other. There is none.
No.
Yet our attorney general is trying to suggest that an exception should be made when it comes to abortion. Well, it's not constitutional and it doesn't make any sense.
Of course it doesn't, and he's just grandstanding to grandstand as usual. He just likes to see his name written somewhere, with it. And listen, it's that's how it works sometimes because it's become a polarizing issue. I know because this was what I said about abortion right there was the last column that the Montgomery Advertiser killed for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah,
what you just wrote this week.
Not really what I wrote this week. What I wrote about, I had written a column essentially saying that that doctors and scientists can pretty much pinpoint at this point when there is this little human is formed and at some point within the womb, and that's where we should start making our laws. And
they killed that column.
Oh yeah, the new managing editor at the time was a dude named Bro, for real, and it was just too much. It was just he couldn't take it.
Now, how long ago was that?
It's going on 10 years now. Eight at least. I guess it was early 2016 or so. I left there when it was not long after that they had decided that the column was just too controversial and it was hurting advertising, and so they were just which I said are we talking about the same column? Isn't it the most read consistently the most read thing in the newspaper?
I was going to say if people are reading it, how's it hurting advertising?
Oh well, because we're in a conservative. We're just really Gannett overall is just really trying to move away from opinion pieces, and as it turned out, they did move away from opinion pieces and most news coverage as well at the Montgomery Advertiser, and so because I don't know that they cover anything anymore, and I don't know that anybody has heard from anybody that works there in years now. But it's that's where it was just a bridge too far. It was just too controversial, and really because I'd just written one about something else I can't remember, and it had gotten I think it was about guns, and it had gotten a lot of attention. I was like, well, that's kind of my job. I don't know if you know this or not, and
right,
yeah, I mean we did not have a very pleasant meeting, and that was when I said, that's fine. I was posted on Facebook, and that's when he told me that they control my Facebook as well. And
wait, whoa, really?
Yeah. And I said, no, you don't, brother. And so we went back and forth, and the next week they said that that was gonna be it for the column. They thought that they just wanted me to focus on investigative reporting, and I said, well, listen, man, you do what you got to do, but I'm not gonna stay here if I don't have a column. And he was like, well, and dude had been there like a week and a half. Didn't know shit. But wow. That's fine. Worked out for the better. It's I'm glad to have gotten out when I did. I'm glad to see some of my friends got out. In the meantime, after that, there were good people that I worked with there that I really liked a lot. There were some idiots that I worked with, like in all places. And so, yeah, but
that was 2016, 2017?
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah, so you stayed in the business 10 years. Sounds like 10. Let's see, I got out in 2009. Okay, 7 years longer than I did.
Yeah.
And I got out in the first wave of buyouts at the Huntsville Times. And I was honestly I'm because of how that process went with the Huntsville Times, man, I was blessed to leave when I did.
Yeah.
because
I'll be honest. I got a pretty good little severance out of this. So.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it worked out. It worked out tremendously well because I had a job lined up basically from the time that I left, and I had a couple of options on where to go, but I chose to go with Bill and Susan and APR just because I could control everything that I did, which again kind of gets back to our Facebook deal earlier. But it's that's kind of inconsequential. That's not enough to to really make a life decision on. But the other things were the other things. Starting other businesses and doing other things. All that stuff was. I have a lot of freedom with APR, and I mean, otherwise you and I would not be talking right now. So
that's a very good point.
So we've done very, very well, and so that's all that matters to me. And at this point, and also holding that grudge against that bro guy. So smart move on his part.
You ever bump into him?
No, he was there for like an hour and a half, and then he moved on to somewhere else, and it's fine. It was. You should honestly, I should say before. Yeah, I think he was getting some pressure from some people above him, but the guy before him, Tom Clifford, who now works down in Florida, and Tom got the same pressure. Robert Granfield, who was the publisher, got the same pressure. Those two guys stood up, and Tom basically told them to pound sand when they came to him with that, and Robert told him the same stuff. And those two guys were old school newspaper dudes, and they knew how to handle business. And we didn't always agree. Robert called me in a couple times to say, "Hey, dude, what the fuck are you doing?" But that's what you do with a columnist. That's what you do with a guy who's writing shit that gets people screaming at you over the phone. And and so I had to go in, and Tom was the same way. But Tom was more. If you've seen The Wire, of course, right?
Oh yeah.
You remember Gus on The Wire? The newspaper guy. That was dealing with the guy that was making up sources and stuff. And Tom was kind of like. You don't remember I think it was when the last season of the media.
I know it was the fifth season where they dealt with the newspapers, but I'm trying to remember.
You remember the guy he was making up his sources. And they had this whole thing about trying to win the Pulitzer, and Gus was like, "We're not even going to run this down," and Tom. I only bring that up because Tom kind of reminded me of Gus. He was just kind of a no bullshit. Loved to sit around and talk about news and and there was a way that you did it and a way that you didn't do it, and that's just all there was to it. Okay, it was just all there was to it, and nobody's going to come into his paper and tell him how the hell he was going to do it. And so I mean that's just that's the way you handle it. And I love.
Was that the Clark? I'm trying to remember. Was that the Clark Johnson character, or he's the only one I remember from that season?
I don't know the guy. I don't know the guy's name. Is actually the actor's name, but
it's a black guy with curly hair.
I won't say Gus was I thought it was Gus. It was a guy. The reason I remember him is as he walks in one scene. He walks into the news. He walks into the office in the newsroom, and there's a group of reporters standing at the window over there. And he walks in and says, "What's going on?" And one of them turns around and says, "Something's on fire." And he stands there for a minute. And he goes, "I wonder what it is." Like, we're the newspaper guys. You're the ones supposed to be telling people what's going on.
Right. That's hilarious. That sounds like the Clark Johnson character.
That probably is. That sounds kind of like his name. But anyways, that is. And so, I think that the guy that wanted to kill the column was kind of getting pressure from some of the higher ups. And I think that's what did it. And so. It was just it was a weird time. It was a weird time to be alive, and I will say they pulled that at exactly the wrong time because they got
it was Clark Johnson.
Okay.
His character was Augustus Haynes.
Yeah, Gus. Yeah. It was. They pulled it at exactly the wrong time because that's about the time that Donald Trump came on the scene and politics blew up. And so it's anyways, all right, let's do right wing nut and get ourselves out of here. That's enough old school newspaper stuff. Our right wing nuts are the folks, the Republicans in the Alabama legislature that passed the anti-DEI legislation that have now forced the closing of DEI offices at universities all around the state. Moved at the University of Alabama, they moved the Black Student Union out of its offices, and you know, to what end? What did you solve? You didn't solve anything. You didn't. The only thing you did was you took some marginalized people and you marginalized them even more. That's all you did. You didn't benefit anybody. This wasn't affirmative action. This wasn't something that was really causing anybody any problems. All it was an office that was making sure that some students that might struggle coming from predominantly Black neighborhoods and Black culture were able to get onto this campus where it was a whole lot of white people and were able to better assimilate and see some friendly faces and reach some people that had their best interests at heart and help them ease into a life at college and better succeed. And isn't that the damn goal? I mean, to help folks through life here.
Right. No, I agree with you. And it occurs to me that we should probably amend the right wing nut and add Governor Ivey into this because she has been a vocal proponent of this very same thing and in fact signed the bill into law. Yeah. So she is as culpable as far as I'm concerned as the legislature, the Republicans in the legislature are. Mm-hmm. And in fact, she, made it a point to say we're not going to let critical race theory and wokeness take control of our state, or however she put it, and it's all just a bunch of crap. I mean, it's and when I say that, I mean, I'm saying that the idea that these things were somehow undermining the ability of the state of Alabama or the University of Alabama or any of these institutions to provide services and to help people across the state, regardless of race, to prosper is absolutely, utterly ridiculous. It's fiction. There's no evidence of that. And yet, we have people that, again, for political purposes, just like with abortion, they're finding something that they can use to play on people's fears and to divide people unnecessarily. And, welcome to Alabama. Welcome to America, I guess.
You're right. It's just disappointing. Honestly, it is. It's disappointing that we're doing this and taking a step backwards, because that's all it is. It's just a step backwards, which is exactly what some people want. When they talk about making America great again, they're talking about taking steps backwards where some people don't have the same rights as other people, and that is their advantage in life. And if you ever doubt that advantage, I would challenge you to take a look around at the idiots that are in our state legislature and ask yourself how it is that they managed to achieve such positions, being as mentally challenged as they are. So I think that's a clear sign of it. All righty, let's get ourselves out of here. We've given these people enough.
All right, man.
All right. That's till next week. Y'all be safe out there.
Peace.